we've gathered again to resume commenting on the beginning of the Odyssey. We're at line 63. I'm going to read line 63 and translate it, and then we'll talk about it. Ten ἀπαμειβόμενος προσέφη νεφεληγερέτα Zeus. The cloud-gathering Zeus addressed her, ἀπαμειβόμενος, answering in return. You've got a nice redundant up for ἀπαμειβόμενος, right?
Well, it may not be redundant.
No, I mean it isn't redundant. It has another function, which is to emphasize the reciprocity of the response, right?
Yes, but who initiates it? Like apodexis is, start from me, and then I point to you.
Okay.
So it starts with the ego, and then it goes to the second person.
Right. So it's Zeus, the person, the Tain is Athena, just so everybody understands, right? So he's responding to what she said. What comes to mind about this?
About this particular line?
Yes.
It's formulaic.
Yes, it could be. You have a variant which is theoīgerēta Zeus, which is interesting, right? Isn't that what it is? Where we need to have two consonants before the to make position. I believe you do something like
Zeus,
that. With you have and gathering lightning bolts is not as clear a phenomenon as gathering clouds, but right, it's okay. He holds a bunch of them in his hand before he throws them one by one.
Is that how you understand the cloud gathering?
Well, cloud gathering, I think, is bringing them together to make a storm, right?
Yeah, right.
So
Storm god.
if they're dispersed, you don't have a storm. If you bring them together, you get lots of them. And then that's a really archaic nominative, right?
Right.
And again, you have the metrical. It's not that weird, but the metrical feature of having a line end with a monosyllable, which the previous line also did. Right. So the same word, different inflections, which sort of makes for a response in a certain way, right? But anyhow.
So the zeta makes position, right?
Right.
And
because it's a short alpha and get a top.
That's right.
Yep.
And same thing in the line before where it's Ǒdυσῆα Ποσειδάων, right?
Yep.
Zeta making position.
Yep.
I don't think we should go any further with that, but it's interesting that the zeta makes position. Zda or Z, one or the other.
I'm glad you brought that up. In W.S. Allen's book, Vox Graeca, it's recommended that we pronounce this ZD, but I, for one, believe the argumentation of George Sheets, which hasn't really been published properly yet. The argumentation goes that it's really DZ, not ZD. And that would be Zell.
Zell.
Yeah.
DZ.
Yeah.
Right.
But we can leave that in abeyance.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Moving along. Okay. Tέknon ἐμόν, ποῖόν σε ἔπος φύγεν ἔρκος ޮδόντων. Πόσαν ἐπείτ Ωδυσῆος εγώ θεοῖ ὁ λατόιμεν. Ως περιμέννον έστι βροτῶν, περιδίρε θεοῖσιν, άτανα τόισιν εδόκα, toi οὐρανὸν, εὐρον εκούσιν. My child, what sort of word has escaped the barrier of your teeth? How could I forget God like Odysseus? How then, ἐπειτ, could I forget God like Odysseus? This is what, I'll maybe finish translating.
Okay.
Who is above mortals, other mortals, in nous, in mind, and who, peri again, let's see, gave beyond other mortals sacrifices to the immortal gods who hold wide heaven or the wide sky. or who have the wide sky, or who inhabit the wide heaven.
Amongst them.
Equicid is have, but
Yeah.
something like that.
But it means inhabit.
Right.
I think, yeah.
So, sorry, that wasn't very smooth, but so this is an answer to what Athena has just accused Zeus of, namely, being angry somehow or other with Odysseus. And he repeats what she said, that he Odysseus gave sacrifices at Troy. Let's see. Yes, and and she accuses Zeus of being angry with Odysseus. I would say that's a fair translation of Odyssīo, to be angry with. Well, it's a little hard to tell about that verb.
Yes, it is.
Because, it's so tied up with the name of Odysseus and,
Right.
and what you think that means. But anyway, Zeus is answering, saying that he hasn't forgotten, and that's what this is all about. He hasn't forgotten, and he acknowledges that Odysseus did excel other mortals in intelligence, nous, and that he gave, and in piety. Let's just leave it at that, right? Sacrifices.
Yeah.
So he's got both intelligence, and also he's good with the gods.
Right.
He's square with the gods. Okay? No, that's a place to start anyway. Now,
We could talk a little bit about the peri. It's so interesting that peri in Greek can be around or above, and this is above, as in Latin superi, which becomes classical Latin super. But in Greek, it's hard to sort things out when peri means around and when it means on top of. I like to think of that wonderful name, Periander, Periandros, which doesn't mean a man who gets around, it means Superman.
That's right.
Which is a nice name for a tyrant.
Right.
that's right. That's good.
Same as Pericles, right?
Yes, Pericles is somebody whose his glory is
Beyond everyone's.
above and beyond. Yes. Anything else about?
Well, I don't know. This is probably the first time that barrier of the teeth has occurred, right?
Yes.
I don't have anything very interesting to say about it. I just think it's a wonderful image and a great formula. What sort of word is this that has escaped the barrier of your teeth? It's as if your teeth are there to prevent certain words from getting out.
It shouldn't have gotten out.
That's right.
In this case, right? You said something you shouldn't have.
Right.
I'm not sure if it's always that way, but I think the other thing that's like this is daimonia, which you have this wonderful translation of, Greg, what's gotten into you.
Yes. Yes.
Which captures the essence of the meaning, but I wonder what the difference is contextually between them and something like this.
Which word are you looking at?
Daimonia, when you begin a speech to somebody.
I know, but you're comparing it to what?
Poion épos,
Right.
fύγεν ἕρκος, ὀδόντων.
Mm-hmm.
But this is really specifically focused on his word, her words, and he's answering them quite specifically, right? Of course, I'm not angry at him for this, and then he goes on to say it's Poseidon who's the source of the problem, right?
Right, that's coming up.
Yes.
The way we say that people have their lips sealed, it makes me think that once you start thinking of teeth, you're thinking of an open mouth, not a closed mouth. So there's no zipping it, so to speak, referring to Austin Powers jokes
And the gesture.
and gesture. And I mentioned that because of that recent research project of our colleague Gloria Ferrari-Pini, when she's looking at this bronze statue of Homer, as she argues, the identity is, the mouth of the bronze head is open. And guess what? The sculptor actually puts teeth into the mouth. So there are teeth inside that bronze head. Right. Because once you start thinking of an open mouth, then you start thinking of teeth.
Yes.
And in a sense, the first line of defense is have your lips sealed, but I love the fact that it's teeth, which accentuates the visualization of an open mouth.
And let's face it, that visually the teeth make a good barrier.
Yes. Yes. It's terrific.
Good phrase.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Is it me now?
Yes, Greg.
All right. So, alla Poseidon kai eochos askelesaian Cyclopes kecholotai honofta mu ala osen antitheon Polyphemus ho onkratos esti. Oops, let's try that again. Antitheon Polyphemus ho kratos esti megiston pāsιν Cyclopesin tho osa de min tekenympe forkynos tygater halos atrygetoio medontos en spes gλαφυροῖσι Poseidon migεῖσα. Well, that took me
2, 3, 4,
through quite
5,
a few lines.
6, you got 6 lines.
And lucky me, I have all of these words that people in the trade call Homeric glosses. And glosses means we can't explain them fully. Sometimes even the etymology is opaque. So I take the Fifth Amendment about 3 or 4 of these words in the sense that I cannot say anything definitive. I certainly don't have the last word.
Like Osculus.
And we'll start with Osculus, which means something like relentlessly, and it's a neuter adjective functioning as an adverb, going with in. But let me just wade into it, and we'll get to other Homeric glosses on the way.
Okay.
So, but, and I'm not happy with the translation, but Poseidon. And then the question is whether gaeochos means the earth holder or the earth shaker. I'm going to take the fifth on that for the moment, unless Doug and Lenny force me to make a decision.
Why would he be a holder of the earth?
Possessor.
Possessor, in the same sense as the gods who echus and the uranon.
Yeah.
And his name.
Yeah. It has to do with
Das.
Das. Yes, exactly.
The husband of or the master.
Right.
Yeah.
And he'd be the
earth.
shaker because he makes earthquakes. Right?
Yes, and then you would derive the root from the same root you see in Latin veho.
Yeah, yeah.
But as you can see, I'm leaning towards the first choice, not the second choice.
Okay.
But there's no point in fighting about it now. Right?
No, definitely not.
So, but Poseidon, let's say the possessor of earth, relentlessly, time and again, is in a state of anger over Cyclopes. And I think this genitive here, Cyclopes, is a perfect example of Greg's resorting to the least common denominator way of translating a genitive, which is in connection with. In my mind, if I think of all the functions of the genitive, the translation in connection with is the most neutral and the one that goes the longest distance. So is angry in connection with the Cyclops. And you notice I didn't say always because in and ia, and here I am certain, are old case formations for the noun ion, which is a coming full circle of time. So in and ia would be repeating again and again in a full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a linear, it's a non-linear always. It's a circular always.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Poseidon is angry about the Cyclops, whom he blinded And instead of saying genitive of separation, I'll say blinded in connection with his eye.
Okay.
Again, playing it very neutral about the function of the genitive, because alaos then must mean blinded.
Yes.
And then now we have the name of the Cyclops, Polyphemus, the one who matches the gods. I don't think it means against the gods. It's matching up to the gods, which can be antagonistic, but doesn't have to be.
Right.
So something like a match for the gods, Polyphemus. And could I say something about Polyphemus? This is an interesting name because pheme in Homeric diction means a word that is specially coded. And there's a famous example that maybe we'll get to if we get far enough in the Odyssey, where Odysseus is praying to Zeus for a sign, and part of the signing message that Zeus gives involves somebody saying something which means one thing in one context, but another thing in another context. So it's a riddling word, which means that Polyphemus is somebody who's connected with many different kinds of discourse. Pheme would be cognate with Latin fama, but in Greek it doesn't mean fame or glory conferred by what people say, which is what you think. It means coded speech in Greek. And so it's very, very special. Why is this particularly relevant to Odysseus? Because the antagonist of Polyphemus, Odysseus, deserves the epithet Polyphemus more than the monster himself.
Yes.
And this gets us to Folklore 101, where when the hero dispatches a monster, can sometimes share the characteristics of the monster and even experience a kind of spilling over from the victim to whoever is doing the dispatching.
The standard example being Indra and the Vrtra, right?
Indra, the serpent slayer or dragon slayer or obstruction remover, and Vrtra, the ultimate obstructionist. Another one is the Irish hero Cuchulainn, who kills the hound of a smith called Hulan. And so the smith is so angry, you killed my hound. Mm-hmm. From now on, you will be the hound, Hu of Hulan, me, the smith. And so that's how Cuchulainn gets the name. Yeah. Otherwise, he'd be Shetanta, meaning the one who frequents the crossroads. Very hermetic. So all of this to say that Polyphemus is such a wonderful name for the antagonist of Odysseus, because he's so relevant to Odysseus' own identity. After all, Odysseus will deny that he is anybody. He's an outis, he's a no person, non-person in the cave of Polyphemus. Right. So if he's a non-person, if he's no longer Odysseus, then what is he? And so we could go on and on and on about this, all of us, but to continue, whose kratos, whose power is the biggest among all the Cyclopes. In other words, Polyphemus has more kratos, more power than any of the other Cyclopes. Now, what's interesting about that is if Emil Baptiste is right, kratos is not just power, but it's a kind of power that takes away power from everybody else. It's a zero-sum concept. If you have kratos, that means everybody else has zero.
Okay.
And so this kind of cancels all the other Cyclopes, and it's a good thing, because if the work of a Homer researcher called Elwine holds, it turns out that there's a myth about the Cyclopes that contradicts everything we learn about the Cyclopes here. In other versions, and you find this in the Scholia, in the marginal notes of the manuscript tradition, in other versions, the Cyclopes are good sailors. And so when Odysseus does whatever he does to the Cyclopes, and they get provoked. In one version of the Odyssey narrative, they chase Odysseus by ship all over the Mediterranean.
Oh, wow.
How's that for
It
a
makes more
completely
sense.
different
It makes more
version?
sense for a Poseidon person, right?
And it certainly does.
Yeah.
If you're going to be the son of Poseidon, as Polyphemus is,
Yeah.
you expect to be.
That's all very interesting because, the Homeric view of the Cyclopes is that they're totally antisocial. There's no,
That's
right.
there's no society at all.
And no
So-
civilization.
So what you
So
say-
even for Polyphemus to be called the greatest or having the
Yeah.
most power among them, we don't see that. I mean,
Yeah,
they're just isolated.
Yeah.
They knock on his door and say, "Well, what happened to you?" And that's all we see
Yeah.
at the other
Yeah.
Cyclopes.
No, their identity is so canceled
Yeah,
that you concentrate on this one seemingly pre-cultural, pre-civilization figure,
Right.
this ogre who
Right.
Yeah.
is not familiar with seafaring or
And-
any other technology.
and we're actually told that Cyclopes have no assemblies. They have
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
It's-
And what you say
Yeah.
is that he atanistia eidos. He knows the things that are not Themis.
Yeah,
It's such a
right.
beautiful thing.
It's
He
very
knows exactly what's
antisocial.
not, right?
Or asocial.
Yes.
So that's very interesting that there is this other tradition
Yeah.
where they can actually man a ship together.
Yes, it's so amazing. I just love that. I just so love that. And I really haven't thought about it that much until this conversation, but because Kratos is a zero-sum concept, if his identity cancels out the identity of the others, that means you have free play for this other version. May I mention one other thing about the Cyclopes?
Sure.
And that is, contrary to what we hear in Odyssey 9, where the Cyclops Polyphemus has zero technology, we think of the fact that in Hesiodic poetry, the thunderbolt of Zeus was crafted by the Cyclopes as master blacksmiths.
Yes, exactly.
So there too, you see that Cyclopes can either be a total zero when it comes to, in this case, technology, or knowing everything about
Right.
technology.
But that's a nice combination of force and cleverness, right?
Yes.
Making the thunderbolt is the weapon of ultimate force, and then having the skill with your hands to make it
Yes.
as an artisan, right?
And then, you know what? Let's not discuss the etymology of Cyclopes.
Okay, yeah. 'cause-
No.
Unless, Doug,
No.
you're the expert, so if you
Yeah.
want to say something
No,
about
I
it.
don't think so. In book 9, maybe.
Okay.
You can't wait till book 9. We may all be in the grave by the time we get to book 9.
It's not relevant.
Especially at this
It's not
rate.
relevant.
At this rate. Doug, say something.
Oh, you want me to say
Yeah,
something?
yes,
Oh, I thought you were
yes.
telling me to not to.
Yes, I was being rhetorical,
Oh,
saying, "Oh, what
rhetorical.
happened?"
Oh, goading
But I
me.
think you should. I'm goading you.
Well, as I recall, I drew attention to 3 possible etymologies of Cyclopes. One is kuklos and ops, circle-eyed. Of course, all eyes are circular, so it's a question why you would say that. I'm not going to get all 3. Oh, I should look at that?
Peku.
Yeah. Sorry.
The other one is
Yeah, peku, which is the P is dropped off in front of the K because it's a 0 grade, and that peku is, think of Latin, it means sheep, basically. And clopes is a sheep stealer. Have I got this right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or it could be cattle, but why not?
Well, that's right.
But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a sophisticated idea.
Yes.
It was proposed by Schmidt. Who proposed? Somebody. No.
Schmidt definitely channels
Yes. Okay.
the earlier
Rudiger Schmidt reports all of these.
Oh,
the
well,
earlier views. Yeah.
No, I was trying to think of who actually.
I think Tima.
Paul
Paul
Tima.
Tima, yeah.
That's who it was. And the third one is this is where I'm having a little trouble. So we've got circle-eyed,
There's
Oh, and the third one is just kuklos,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
And standing for the circle, kuklos is used with the circle of the sun.
Sun, yeah,
Kuklos,
exactly.
Aelioio.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a really interesting one because
Yeah.
he is a solar figure with this one eye
Yeah.
and having to do with sunset, death, destruction,
Going
escaping
into a
from,
cave.
yeah, going into the cave.
Yep.
So
Emerging from it.
he incarnates the negative aspect of solar
Beautiful,
mythology.
yeah.
That's
I think you must be right.
okay. So
So it'll be sun face or sun eye. Or
yeah, something like that.
It's
Kuklos.
a kind of haplology.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about that is that it's Indo-European, the circle of the sun. That the
Yeah.
Sunan whale is Anglo-Saxon,
And
for
then-
example.
then
Not
the-
pronounced correctly, but you know, it's
Yeah.
something like that. And it's chakra in Sanskrit, Suryasya chakra, something like that.
And that's
Circle of the
And
sun.
you also have Heliokuklos and Aeschylus.
That's right. And it's in Greek.
Yeah.
Circle of the sun.
And just in case we never make it to Rhapsody 9, I'll make one other comment, which is a footnote to what you were saying, Doug, and that is that when Odysseus and his men actually put out the eye of the Cyclops in Rhapsody 9, there's a ghastly simile where the eye sizzles, and then we quickly segue to a simile, and the simile talks about a blacksmith who is tempering red hot steel in the making, and the red hot steel is placed into the water,
Plunged into it. Yeah.
plunged into the water, and then the sizzling effect happens. And Walter Burkert, B-U-R-K-E-R-T, who was, I think, a very sensitive student of Greek religion and world religions, points out that in many folklores of the world, when a hero kills an ogre of nature and thereby tames nature, this is kind of alien to us, but when nature is tamed, that is viewed as the discovery, the invention of technology.
Yeah.
So in other stories that resemble what we read in the Odyssey, there's culture hero X who blinds natural monster Y, and the blinding is the discovery, I should say better, the invention of technology,
Yeah.
like
Tempering metal.
the art
Yeah.
of the blacksmith.
Yeah.
So Homeric poetry, being as sophisticated as it is, it's not an etiology, it's simply a simile. It's this action happens, and it's like the action of a blacksmith, but in other folklore, it could be this action results in the technology of the blacksmith. And again,
Right.
we think of Cyclopes in Hesiodic
Yeah,
poetry, where
exactly.
they are the blacksmiths who
Right.
create the thunderbolt of Zeus.
So it's a very
What
contradictory picture.
it's an amazing set of contradictions, as
Yeah.
Lenny, you say,
Yeah.
and all of this is because of Kratos. I still think that in this sentence, the other aspects of the Cyclopes are canceled, so that we can concentrate on the beastly aspect.
This one.
And the negative ones
And
that,
just this one.
that Doug is talking about. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, that's very nice.
Yeah.
That's very relevant
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
to
goody.
how Homeric poetry works.
And now it goes on.
And it goes on. So now you have a nymph called Theosa, which means the running female,
Mhm.
but it's running in the sense that waves run one after the other. So it's a very nautical, a very maritime way of thinking about the Cyclops.
Because these are all sea creatures.
Yes.
Phorcys as well. Right?
And then the next line where Theosa is the daughter of Phorcys, and Phorcys, one of the many, I don't like to say old men of the sea, but old males of the sea, because they're really godlike,
Yeah.
or gods, and ruling over the sea, which is unharvested.
Mm-hmm.
That's another close.
And that's a Homeric gloss. I don't take responsibility for what it really means. Take the Fifth Amendment. Nobody seems to know for sure what it means, but it seems to mean unharvested in the sense that you don't grow gardens in the sea.
But I think that fits. I mean, the barren sea.
Yeah.
The barren sea.
Yeah.
Because this is, at least in the Odyssey, the only time you eat what comes out of the sea is when you can't eat anything else, right?
Yes.
Right?
It's sure.
Not a source of food.
It's not the French model of what is it? Fruits de mer.
Fruits of the sea.
Fruits de mer.
Frutto di mare.
You know, but I think you can have both. I think
Yeah.
you can have the source of food underneath the surface. This is the surface of the sea, which is barren.
You can't farm it. You
as
can't
a
plow it.
contrast to land. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that's beautiful.
But
Yes.
there's also a kenning for the land, which there's this place somewhere in the end of the Iliad where you talk about the land as he trafere as opposed to the sea. At the shore, you call the land that which nourishes, right? By contrast with the sea as being barren.
And by the way, you better gloss what a kenning is for our friends out there.
It's a kind of riddling term for something instead of you have to know what you're talking about when you say the nourisher, right?
Yes.
It's like
It's
the
riddling.
the one that carries it.
Yes.
She who carries her own house. There's a snail.
Snail.
But you know what? I'm not letting you guys continue with our reading. So why don't I quickly wind this up?
Okay.
And I realize I didn't really translate theoīsa de min teke nymphe. So theoīsa, the local goddess, is the way I'll translate it,
Okay.
gave birth to him, the daughter of Phorcys, Phorcys, the ruler of the barren sea, in hollow caves, having had sex with Poseidon.
Right.
Enough of me. Let's keep going.
All right. Well, go next. Ektu de ォδυσῆα Ποσειδάων en οσίχθον, ut kataktene, plaze dapa patridos aies. So from that point,
You should keep going.
well, you guys are all reading a sentence. I'll take my lumps here. Okay. The earth shaker Poseidon in no way killed Odysseus. Okay. Utikataktene. But he made him veer away from his. He makes him they're present, these verbs. In no way kills Odysseus, but makes him veer away from his paternal land. Right? His fatherland, I guess.
Were you happy with how you did ektu? I'm happy, but
From that point on, right?
Yeah,
From the point at which he blinded the Cyclopes, right?
Yeah.
Or because of that. It's
I think that's it,
You
yeah.
think it's because of that?
well, it's what happens in Pindar Olympian 1 and everywhere else is
Yeah.
that what you're taught in first year Greek about after versus since, is, in other words, temporal versus circumstantial, just collapses. And there are too many situations in Greek myth making where cause and effect are a given if chronologically one thing follows another thing.
I'm just thinking of the beginning, the proem of the Iliad, where you have ex who day,
Yep.
which is definitely, I think, from that point.
Yep.
Right? Or it might be because of.
Yeah, but even there,
It could be because of the plan of Zeus.
you see what I'm saying
Yes,
is
exactly.
is
Okay, I get
that
it.
circumstance and time
Yep.
are
Yeah.
together in myth because the sequence is a given.
No, I get it. You're right. Okay. But the point being made that he didn't kill him, but he just tortures him, so to speak, right? By not letting him go home.
When I look at the fact that it's not an heiress, he's not killing him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Poseidon is
It's
responsible for the fact that Odysseus still isn't home.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the story.
Yes, exactly.
About,
So this is what.
But the positive side is at least he's still alive because he's not killing him.
Yeah.
Then there would
Yeah.
be no story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
But I love that present there.
Yeah. The two of them, right? Plaze as well, right?
Right. Yeah, but and that's it, because that's what's still happening. That's the point of the council, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
to deal with the present situation.
Okay.
So, Lenny, you just did 2 lines.
Yeah,
there.
all right. That's all right.
That's okay.
It's up to talk.
Okay.
Okay.
Lagatemes hoide perifrazometha pantes noston, aposeltesi, Poseida ondemetese honkolon, umengarti dunesetai panton athanatonai ketiteon eridynamen oios. So, but come on, all of us here, let us all take thought for his return, noston, how he may come or how he may go. Poseidon will relent or will give way his anger.
Or let go of.
Let go of his anger.
Yeah.
I think it's actually to give way.
Okay.
Methiemi is, I say that because of what Menelaus does in the chariot race.
Okay.
Methaeka. He
lets go of the reins.
well, no, he
Gives
gave way.
for somebody else to go past it.
That's right.
Yep.
So, we'll, I don't know how to do it now, but anyway,
Okay.
Poseidon will give way in his anger, I'm going to say. For he will not be able alone to quarrel against all the immortals in spite of them, immortal gods against their will. That's Kati is against their will, and that takes a genitive, athanaton theon, I think.
Right.
Mengarti dunesetai, but so does Antia take a genitive. So he will not be able against all the immortals in spite of or against the will of Kati, and again a genitive right afterwards, the gods, to quarrel, he by himself. Sorry, that was totally graceless, but I'm trying to get the grammar in here.
Yeah.
But, you've got
No,
two
I think you
different
nailed
reasons.
it. Yeah.
Two different reasons for the genitives. And it's very beautifully worked out in Greek because Antia is followed by panton, and then athanaton, and then you have kati, and then you against the will of, and so you have another genitive after that, theon, but they all kind of work together.
Yeah.
May I offer 2 comments that may require shutting down of Greg here, but one of them is that in 77, noston, I could have imagined a genitive there is, let's think about his safe homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's accusative reminds me of these mental verbs like memnemai, I remember, which if they take a genitive as an object, like memnemai, it would mean I have memories of somebody. But if you have an accusative, memnemai plus accusative means something like, I like to use the science fiction vocabulary, I have total recall of something. I am reproducing in my mind what actually is or happens. Similarly here, since this is a council of the gods, it's when we deliberate, whatever thought process we have is
That's
the
gonna happen.
absolute. It's the absolute nostos.
Yes, so that's
Yeah,
why I say
it's gonna happen.
And as
It's a
Doug,
plan.
you show beautifully in your work, nostos is not just a homecoming, but a song about a homecoming. So this is ratifying the homecoming. And so Poseidon, I don't care, says Zeus, what he thinks. When the council of gods ratifies something, that's it. And so he can't really quarrel with it anymore once it's ratified. And I mentioned that because Antia in Pindar Olympian 1, and I just agonized over this forever, where the voice of the poet says, I'm going to tell a version of the myth, Antia proteron, is the expression. And it doesn't necessarily mean against what everybody else has said before me. It's with everybody as my witness, and therefore as potential rivals and what they would say. And it can be against, but it doesn't have to be. It's just I'm confronting my myth with the way the myth was told by all my predecessors, and it's an act of competition, an act of rivalry. And so here, Zeus is ramming through a plan, a plot of the Odyssey, a nostos, that Poseidon just cannot challenge.
Moreover, he's not there.
And so
they're taking advantage of his
a
absence,
good
right?
point. So that it's antia. If he tried to face me down,
Because there are places where there's friction between these two.
Yes, yes.
But I think what this does is it really isolates Poseidon. Everybody,
Wow, yes.
everybody is of the gods
Yes.
are on the side of this return.
Yeah.
And Poseidon is isolated. He's the one who isn't. And he's not there. He's not present. But his role is crucial. I mean, he's the antagonist.
Yes.
That, will finally give way. But it's a bit funny the way Zeus here says that Poseidon won't be able to fight against all of us. What he really means is, Poseidon couldn't fight against me alone.
Exactly.
So here's Zeus as the Democrat, right?
Yes, exactly. Let's all of us do it together.
Or let's say he's Mr. Procedure. I've got the votes.
But he's also doing it behind his back.
Doing it, yes, that's right. But I think the sense of it is that the gods as a whole are on the side of this. What's going to happen in this poem?
It's interesting you say it's the sense of it, because in Friends culture, in Quaker culture, you don't have a majority, you have a sense of the meeting.
Well, the sense of this meeting is that there's going to be a nostos.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about methese, because there are the metaphors that I know, for example, about getting rid of anger, are throwing it away. Απορρίπτε you have as the verb.
It's to relax, though. This verb, it's to relax. It's to
But it can also mean. I think it can mean, let go a weapon at somebody.
So here's the compromise for the two of you.
I'm not sure.
What if it's relax and let go?
Yeah.
Let go.
Because I understand where Doug is worried about adjectives like methemon,
That's it.
which is a letting go
exactly.
attitude.
Right. Remiss.
An Irish friend once said to me, he was really angry about something. And I was trying to console him, saying, Sean, this isn't so bad. And this is a professor back where, and he said to me, let it go, Greg, let it go. I said, wait, I've already let it go. You're the one who has to let it go.
All right.